They laughed when I walked into the wedding alone, until a billionaire walked in and said, "Please stay with me as I tell my story. And please, do not forget to support our channel by subscribing to our channel, liking our videos, and sharing your loved ones. Your support means the world to us." Now to our story. Pak. I could feel every stare like daggers as I walked into the wedding alone. People turned to whisper. Some even laughed quietly behind their glasses. I could hear bits of it. She actually came? Alone. How sad. They weren't even trying to hide it. The bride, Brooke, stood at the front of the garden in her perfect white dress, glowing under fairy lights and fake smile. She caught sight of me and gave the smallest, most smug little smirk. The kind of look that says, "You lost." I hadn't seen her since the day I found out she was sleeping with Dylan, my fiancé at the time, my best friend and my future husband. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I walked out of that apartment and never looked back. And now, here they were, getting married, surrounded by people who used to be part of my world. It felt like a twisted joke. I wasn't invited to celebrate them. I was invited to be seen, to be pitied, maybe even mocked. They wanted to show me what they had won. I stood near the back, pretending not to notice the looks. Holding my head high was the only shield I had left. My heart pounded, but I didn't flinch. I had told myself I wouldn't cry. I came here for one reason only, to show them I survived. Then something happened. The air shifted. People started turning around, murmuring again, but this time with a different tone. Heads tilted, phones subtly lifted. Someone important had arrived late. A sleek black car rolled to a stop just past the garden gate. Out stepped a man in a tailored charcoal suit, calm and certain. He looked like someone used to being in control, used to owning every room he entered. He scanned the crowd, once, twice, until his eyes landed on me. And then, like he'd been looking for me all along, he smiled. He walked through the rows of chairs, past stunned guests and confused family members, not slowing down. The whispers rose again, but they were different now. Nervous. Curious. He came right up to me, stopped just inches away, and said in a deep, steady voice, "Sorry I'm late, gorgeous. Hope I didn't miss the good part." Gasps rippled through the crowd. I didn't say anything. I just smiled back like I'd been waiting for him. And in that moment, every single person who had laughed when I walked in went silent. It started slow. The kind of betrayal that doesn't stab you all at once. It bleeds you silently day by day. Dylan and I had been together for 4 years. He proposed on a weekend trip to Vermont, just the two of us. I cried when he asked. It felt real. True. Like everything I had been waiting for was finally here. Brooke was my best friend. We'd grown up 2 streets apart. She knew every breakup, every dream, every scar. She helped me plan the engagement party. She stood beside me when I picked out my dress. She smiled at me like she always had, warm and loyal. But looking back now, there were cracks I ignored. The way Dylan got quiet when Brooke was around. How she'd tease him about little things only I was supposed to know. I brushed it off as harmless. I trusted them both. I thought trust was enough. Then things changed. Dylan started acting distant, snapping over small things, forgetting plans. He'd tell me I was being too emotional, too sensitive. I found texts once. Nothing obviously romantic, just strange timing and inside jokes I wasn't part of. When I asked him, he got defensive. He said I was imagining things, that I always overreacted. I began to doubt myself. The night everything shattered, Dylan told me he needed space. Said he wasn't sure we were aligned anymore. No warning. No fight. Just over. A week later, I saw a photo of Brooke and Dylan on someone's Instagram story. At a restaurant, his hand on hers. Smiling like nothing had happened. I felt like my chest collapsed. 2 months later, their engagement was announced. The same ring. My ring. People whispered, of course. Some reached out with fake sympathy. Most didn't say anything. Silence can feel just as loud as laughter. I blocked them both. I blocked everyone who supported them too. Deleted the wedding boards, gave away the dress. For months, I disappeared into my own little world. I stopped answering texts, avoided familiar places, tried to find some version of peace in the wreckage. Then the invitation came. No note, just names on a card, date, time, location. The same garden venue Dylan and I once toured together. I knew what it meant. It wasn't a peace offering. It was a show. A final act in a play they thought they'd already won. But something in me had changed. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I circled the date on my calendar. If they wanted a performance, they were going to get one. And it wouldn't be the ending they expected. The invitation came in a thick, cream-colored envelope with gold foil trim. Expensive, elegant, and completely unnecessary. No return address, just Brooke and Dylan, in a swirling cursive that looked like it belonged on a fake fairy tale. At first I laughed. Out loud. Then I stared at it for a long time, fingers trembling, not sure if I wanted to open it or set it on fire. I knew it wasn't a mistake. Brooke didn't do accidents. This was intentional. A statement. Look what we have. Look what you lost. An invitation disguised as a victory lap. I tossed it onto the counter and left it there for days. Each time I walked past, I'd feel something twist in my chest. Not heartbreak exactly, but something heavier. Like humiliation that hadn't found its voice yet. On the fourth day, I picked it up and opened it. Their wedding would be held at the same garden Dylan once swore he'd marry me. Same date we used to talk about. It was almost poetic. Cruel, but poetic. My first instinct was to tear it in half. My second was to block out the world and pretend it never arrived. But then something strange happened. As I stared at that card, I didn't feel sad. I felt sharp, awake, like a spark had caught fire somewhere deep inside me. A different voice, quiet but steady, whispered, "Go." Not to cry. Not to plead. Not for them. For me. So I did what they never expected. I RSVP'd yes. The days leading up to the wedding were harder than I thought they'd be. Some nights I doubted myself. Some mornings I wanted to crawl back into bed and disappear. But every time that feeling crept in, I reminded myself, this wasn't about revenge. This was about reclaiming my place, not in their lives, but in my own. I spent hours finding the perfect dress. Not flashy, not loud, elegant, clean, powerful. The kind of dress that makes people turn twice, wondering who you are and where you found that kind of calm. I practiced my smile in the mirror. Not fake, not forced, just steady. I reminded myself that their actions didn't define my worth. That walking in alone didn't mean I had lost. It meant I had survived. And so, on the day of the wedding, I walked through the gates of that garden alone. Head high, shoulders back, heart pounding, yes, but steady. I walked into the lion's den with nothing but silence behind me and fire in my veins. The garden looked like something out of a movie. White flowers hanging from trees, gold-trimmed chairs lined in perfect rows, soft music drifting through the air. Everything was polished, expensive, and carefully staged to feel magical. But the magic was fake, and I could feel it the second I stepped in. People turned when they saw me. Some raised their eyebrows. Others smiled, that tight, uncomfortable smile people use when they don't know what to say, but want to look kind. I recognized most of them. Former friends. Mutuals who took their side, or stayed silent when it mattered. They whispered behind their hands, glanced in my direction, and leaned closer to the person beside them. I didn't need to hear the words. I knew what they were saying. That I was the one who got left behind. That it was bold or sad or pathetic to come alone. I spotted Dylan near the front, laughing with someone in a dark suit. He looked different, but not in a good way. Softer somehow. Like someone who had finally gotten everything he wanted, and still didn't know why he felt empty. His eyes passed over me like I wasn't even there. Then there was Brooke. She stood near the altar, glowing in her white gown, surrounded by bridesmaids who looked more like hand-picked props. Her hair was perfect, her smile even more so, wide, full of sugar and poison. She caught my eye for a second, and I saw it, satisfaction. She wanted me to see her like this. She wanted this day to be the final blow. I sat in the second-to-last row, heart beating fast, unsure why I was even here. The humiliation I thought I'd buried started creeping back in. For a moment, I wanted to stand up and leave. Just walk out and let them have their show. Then everything changed. A sleek car pulled up near the entrance. The soft hum of the engine caught people's attention. Conversations paused. A man stepped out, tall, sharp, dressed in a tailored suit that whispered power with every line. He moved like he didn't care who watched, like he belonged anywhere he stood. People stared. Guests turned in their seats. Even Dylan looked up, confused. The man scanned the crowd once, then again. His eyes stopped on me, and in that moment, it felt like the entire garden froze. He walked straight toward me, calm and focused, like we had known each other for years. But I had never seen him before in my life. He moved through the crowd like he owned the ground beneath his feet. Calm, precise, not rushed, but with purpose. Every eye followed him. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Even the music seemed quieter, as if the entire place leaned in to see what he would do next. Nathan Pierce. I recognized him just seconds before he reached me. Photos didn't do him justice. In real life, he didn't look like a billionaire. He looked like the kind of man billionaires listened to. Tall, sharp jaw, piercing gaze, and the kind of stillness that made people nervous. I had read articles about him. CEO of some massive tech empire. Brilliant, private, never seen with the same woman twice. And now, he was standing in front of me like we'd planned this. He gently took my hand, his touch warm and sure, and pressed a kiss to my knuckle. "Sorry I'm late, gorgeous," he said, loud enough for the surrounding rows to hear. "I couldn't let you walk in here alone." Gasps rippled through the guests like a wave. A few people turned to each other in stunned silence. Phones came out, subtle and shaky, already trying to snap proof of what was happening. I froze. My brain couldn't keep up. My heart pounded so hard I thought he might hear it. But I didn't pull away. Instead, I smiled. Small. Controlled. Just enough to play along. He slipped his arm around my waist like it was the most natural thing in the world. They started without me? He joked quietly, leaning closer. Rude. From the front, I saw Brooke's face drop for the first time that day. Her smile wavered. Her eyes narrowed. Dylan looked like someone had knocked the wind out of him. Nathan gave them a short, polite nod, then looked back at me, fully focused. You look stunning, he said, softer now, just for me. I leaned in, barely whispering. What are you doing? Helping, he replied simply. Just follow my lead. I didn't understand what was happening or why he was doing this, but in that moment, I didn't need to. All I knew was that every eye that had mocked me when I walked in was now watching with open mouths. Brooke blinked slowly, lips tight, trying to process. Dylan looked down, jaw clenched. Nathan squeezed my hand gently, his calm steadying my nerve. I didn't know him, but somehow he knew exactly what I needed. It had started at a dog shelter. I was there one rainy afternoon, volunteering to walk the overflow dogs after work. It had become part of my routine, something quiet and simple to keep my mind busy when everything else felt too loud. Nathan was there too, dressed in jeans and a worn hoodie, standing in the corner with a clipboard and a confused expression. I hadn't recognized him at first. To me, he was just another guy struggling to leash up an overly excited husky mix named Rocket. Need help? I asked, holding back a smile. He looked up, a little startled. I think he's walking me. That was how it began. We walked dogs together that day. Him with Rocket, me with a sleepy old lab named Hazel. We talked about nothing and everything. The weather, our favorite foods, the odd comfort of spending time with animals who didn't care about your past. He never introduced himself with a last name, and I didn't press. It felt good not to explain myself for once. I think he sensed I was carrying something heavy, but he didn't pry. He just listened, joked gently, and walked beside me like he belonged there. We ran into each other again the following week, and the one after that. Eventually, we grabbed coffee after a long walk. Then dinner. Still casual, but something had shifted. There was something in the way he looked at me, like he saw through the quiet sadness I wore like armor. I never gave him details about Dylan or Brooke, just fragments. An old friend, someone I trusted. It got messy. He never pushed for more. But Nathan was sharp. He noticed things, and he did his research, not because he didn't trust me, but because he wanted to understand. One day, I showed him the wedding invitation. I didn't explain the history, just handed it to him and said, I'm thinking about going. He held the card for a long time, then simply asked, Do you want them to see you sad or strong? That was it. He didn't offer sympathy. He offered clarity. What I didn't know then was that he recognized Dylan's name, knew of him through business circles, knew Brooke from a social event where she tried too hard to impress the wrong people. He connected the dots, and he made a quiet decision. He wasn't going to just support me from the sideline. He was going to help me walk back into that world with my head high, not as the woman they left behind, but as someone they'd never forget. Nathan leaned toward Dylan during the reception line, his voice low, calm, and too quiet for anyone else to hear. I watched Dylan's expression change in real time. His smirk faded, his eyes widened, and the color drained from his face. He nodded once, stiffly, then turned away without saying a word. Something had just happened, something big. And Nathan didn't look back at him. He just reached for a glass of champagne and handed it to me like nothing was wrong. What did you say? I asked under my breath. Just business, he said with a small smile. Nothing worth ruining the cake over. The act was easy now. I let my shoulders relax, let the smile on my lips linger. Inside, my heart was pounding, but on the outside, I looked like I belonged beside him. Like I was someone worth noticing, not someone to pity. And suddenly, everyone noticed. People who had ignored me earlier now drifted toward us. Old friends, acquaintances, people who wouldn't look me in the eye just an hour before. They came with compliments, questions, fake curiosity wrapped in sweet voices. Nathan handled it all effortlessly, introducing me like I was someone important. He told one guest I was working on a new book, told another I had connections in Paris. It was all smooth, light, and believable. I played along. I met every question with calm confidence, every compliment with quiet charm. The whispers that once felt cruel now sounded curious, admiring. Brooke watched it unfold from across the tent. I saw it in her eyes, confusion turning to suspicion, suspicion turning to panic. Her perfect night was shifting under her feet. The woman she invited to humiliate was now stealing the spotlight without even trying. She approached once, her smile tight. Didn't know you two were close, she said, eyes flicking between us. Nathan didn't miss a beat. She's full of surprises, he said, wrapping an arm around my waist. That's one of the things I like about her. Brooke's smile faltered, and that was when I knew the power had shifted. Not just because of Nathan, but because I wasn't the same girl they thought I'd be. I wasn't there to watch their happiness. I wasn't there to be hurt again. The crowd around me grew, not out of obligation, but interest. People laughed at my jokes. They leaned in when I spoke. Their attention had turned. And Brooke, she had never looked so small. The night had reached that slow, golden hour where speeches were winding down and the cake was waiting to be cut. Glasses clinked, laughter rose and fell, and the air was thick with fake warmth. But beneath it all, something sharp was brewing. Nathan stood from our table, calm as ever, and walked toward the mic near the band. At first, no one noticed, just another guest wanting to say something sweet. But when he cleared his throat and tapped the mic, the entire tent hushed. "I'll keep this brief," he said, his voice steady and smooth. "It's not every day I attend a wedding where I get to deliver two pieces of news. One personal, one professional." He smiled politely. All eyes were on him. Brooke straightened in her chair. Dylan shifted uncomfortably. "First," Nathan said, glancing toward me, "I want to thank Maya for reminding me that strength doesn't always come with noise. Sometimes it walks in quietly and changes everything." A few guests murmured in approval. I stayed still, not knowing what was coming next. "And second," he continued, "since I know business will come up sooner or later tonight, I figured I'd address it now. As of this afternoon, my company has officially severed ties with Ridgeview Investments." Gasps scattered through the room. That was Dylan's firm. Nathan didn't pause. "Due to recent findings, questionable practices, false reporting, and internal misuse of funds, I'm afraid we can no longer endorse or collaborate with Ridgeview in any capacity." Dylan stood halfway up from his chair, face pale. "You don't have the right." Nathan held up a hand. "You might want to sit, Dylan. There's a press release going out in 20 minutes. You'll want to read it carefully." The room was silent. Brooke looked like she had swallowed her own tongue. Her dream evening had just crumbled in front of everyone she wanted to impress. Nathan stepped down from the stage and returned to our table like nothing had happened. People whispered. Some looked shocked, others delighted. A few guests slowly began excusing themselves. I stood up quietly, gathered my purse, and turned to Brooke and Dylan one last time. "Thanks for the invitation," I said softly. "Lovely venue." Brooke didn't speak. Dylan just stared, jaw clenched, lips pressed tight. I walked out with Nathan by my side, hand in hand. No gloating, no raised voice, no final blow, just a soft smile, and the knowledge that the truth had landed exactly where it needed to. And that was enough. By morning, the video clips had already gone viral. Someone had caught the whole thing. Nathan's mic speech, Dylan's reaction, the frozen silence in the tent, and my quiet exit. It hit social media like a bomb. Headlines popped up on gossip pages, business blogs, and influencer accounts faster than anyone could control it. Wedding shocker. Billionaire cuts ties with groom during ceremony. She walked in alone and left with the billionaire. The woman who brought down a wedding without saying a word. I wasn't looking for attention, but attention came anyway. People wanted interviews, podcasts, magazine spreads. Everyone wanted to know, who was I, and how had I pulled this off? Brooke tried to do damage control. She posted a filtered photo with a long caption about celebrating love in private, and how not everyone can handle your happiness. It didn't work. The comments weren't kind. Dylan disappeared from social media entirely. Rumors swirled about his firm collapsing, partners pulling out, lawyers getting involved. No one was sure how deep the damage went, but it was clear the fallout had only started. As for me, I kept things quiet. I turned down most interviews. I accepted one, just to set the record straight. No drama, no revenge speech, just the truth. I had been hurt, but I didn't come to destroy anyone. I just came to be seen. And maybe finally to be free. That honesty struck a chord. Women from all over wrote to me, some with similar stories, others just to say thank you. One message read, "You reminded me that silence can be power." A small publishing house reached out about a memoir. A wellness brand offered a creative role. Old friends I hadn't spoken to in years messaged me to reconnect. The ones who had stayed silent during the betrayal were gone. But the ones who came back now, they came with honesty. And that mattered more. And Nathan, he didn't disappear after the wedding. He didn't push, didn't expect anything. He just stayed, texted, called sometimes, sent me photos of shelter dogs, and asked if I wanted to join him for coffee. We never talked much about what he did at the wedding. He never asked for credit. He just showed up when I needed him, not to rescue me, but to remind me of who I already was. And slowly, life started to rebuild. Not like it was before, but something better. No more pretending. No more shrinking. Just truth, freedom, and the quiet satisfaction of rising from the fire, without ever throwing a single match. The noise faded with time, but the changes stayed. I didn't go back to my old life. I didn't want to. That version of me, the one who made herself small to keep others comfortable, was gone. In her place stood someone steadier, someone who had seen the worst and kept walking. It wasn't just about healing from the heartbreak. It was about learning who I was without it. I stopped waiting for apologies that would never come. I stopped needing people to understand why I left, or why I stayed away. I just moved forward, One quiet morning, sitting by my window with a notebook in hand, I started writing it all down. Not out of anger, not for revenge, but for clarity, for closure, for other women like me. What began as pages of reflection became a book. Honest, unpolished, real. When it got picked up for publication, I almost cried. Not because I needed the world to hear me, but because I had finally heard myself. With that came more. I launched a small platform to support women rebuilding after betrayal, not just from partners, but from friends, family, anyone who made them question their worth. We shared stories, offered tools, reminded each other of our strength. It wasn't perfect, and it didn't need to be. It was real. Nathan stayed part of my world, in the most effortless way. No expectations, no labels. Sometimes we'd meet for coffee and talk about work. Sometimes we'd walk dogs and say nothing at all. He gave me space, not distance. The rare kind of support that doesn't ask for anything in return. People still ask about him, about us. I just smile. The truth is, he helped me yet. But this was never about him. This was my story. One I had to live through to find the version of myself I'd almost forgotten existed. Not the broken girl. Not the one they left behind. The woman who walked back into a room that was never built for her and still made it hurt. Now, when I think back to that day, that garden full of whispers and judgment, I don't feel shame. I feel proud. Because they laughed when I walked in alone. But I walked out, unshaken, unbothered, unstoppable.